Welcome on in to another edition of Dodgers Dogs here on the Dodgers Daily Network. My name is Austin Brubaker. I will be your host this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a little bit of news to talk about today. Today will not be one of those shows where we're struggling to find things to be talking about because it seems like since we had the show on Friday, Casey and I did a show on Friday, since then, and really you can trace it back, basically to that show because of what happened with the Dominics on Saturday, there has been a fire hose of news related to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I'm here to talk about it. I'm here to interact with all of you. Today's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a lot to talk about. We have so many things to address Starting first, we'll talk about the signings that the Dodgers made yesterday. The Dodgers added 2 players to their roster. They also are still waiting, and we will dive into some of the things with Teoscar Hernandez. What do some of these signings mean for Teoscar Hernandez? In addition, today there has been news, or at least during the winter meetings, which is happening right now, which is one of baseball's biggest events, and probably their biggest event during the course of the offseason, where all of the GMs and a lot of executives and a lot of important people come together. This year, they're having it in Dallas, Texas. They come together and interact with each other, try to find different ways. This is often where a lot of signings or trades happen. It is an important week in baseball, and we are starting to find out a lot of information as media gets access to a lot of important personnel. And one of the news that's come out of this that we'll be diving into today, your starting shortstop for the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2025 is Mookie Betts. We'll dive into that. What does that mean for other players on the roster, including a Gavin Lux, including some potential news regarding third base and Max Muncy and that potential. And we'll go through a giant overview of what this means for the roster. And we'll be talking, in addition, more about Teoscar Hernandez and what his future could be, what the signing of Michael Conforto could do. And a question that I have for you guys, and we'll get to this later in the show. Is there a limit to what you're willing to go for a Juan Soto, or not for a Juan Soto already signed, for a Teoscar Hernandez? Is there a limit that you are willing to go to? And if so, what is the maximum number of years or dollar amount that you would give out to a Teoscar Hernandez right now? I think that is an important question because, as I stated earlier, Juan Soto, in the biggest news in baseball right now, signed a 15-year, $765 million contract to be a New York Met. Congratulations to Juan Soto. He got a ton of money, more money than Shohei Ohtani got, and it has escalators potentially to be worth over $800 million. Dodgers weren't willing to go to that extreme. They offered him close to around $600 million, but that was what their barrier is. He is a New York Met. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to the New York Mets. They got a fantastic baseball player, and I wish them nothing but the best. I hope the Dodgers beat the New York Mets during the upcoming seasons. But the Mets got a really good player. Congratulations on Juan Soto on getting that contract. He will not be a Los Angeles Dodger. Before that, the Dodgers made some moves, and we'll dive into them in just a second. First, I got to interact with you guys just a little bit. I got to give a shout out to Mr. John Rod. He is here for Teo news. We will get into that for a little bit, and hopefully, what my hope is that we'll actually get some Teoscar Hernandez news as we are live. So hopefully that means that Teoscar Hernandez is signing here, and hopefully when I'm actually diving into that and ignoring the chat, he will actually have signed. So hopefully that is. Casey is not here tonight. Casey did a show yesterday. He has Mondays off. Wish him nothing but the best. He will be back with more player interviews, and he will be back live, I believe, on Wednesday evening. He's got a lot to do on Mondays. Also a lot of stuff going on with Oklahoma State, so he's busy with that. And yes, last night he was on for a little bit. I didn't get a chance to watch that, but it sounds like Soto signed right after he does, which seems to happen for a lot of these. So just going into these, Alex, thank you very much for joining us. No Teo news right now. Talking a little bit about Conforto. and Treinen, who are back. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Yo, back to you. History Man, go Dodgers and God bless. Bless back to you. Carol, thank you very much for tuning in. Soto, $765 million. No thanks. Glad the Mets overpaid for him. John Cozy is in the chat. Cole is in the chat. Everett, Sammy Boy Smith, thank you all for joining in tonight. So, where I want to go into first is we'll actually go into the news about the Dodgers as far as the two signings that they had. We'll first start off with the Blake Treinen signing, because I got a little bit more to say about the Michael Conforto signing than Blake Treinen. Blake Treinen was a valuable, essential part of the Dodgers bullpen last year. We all remember what he did and what he meant to this Dodgers team, not just in that Game 5 when he put everything on the line and saved the Dodgers. He was the last resort until Walker Buehler had to come in and finish off that game. It was Blake Treinen's game to be able to bridge that gap, that 2 2/3, I don't remember exactly, innings that he was able to get when he came into that game. It was unbelievable what he's able to do. His stuff is still nasty. He is still able to have incredible stuff. His velo is still solid enough, and he's still at this point able to get big league hitters out. So the Dodgers signed him. They re-signed Blake Treinen, who was a free agent, to a 2-year, $22 million deal. That is $11 million per year that they're going to have Blake Treinen. Blake Treinen is 36. I believe this upcoming season, partway through the season, he'll be turning 37, which means you're going to get him basically for his age 36, 37, and 37, 38 seasons. Now, throughout the offseason, I've stated that I would have preferred Blake Treinen on a 1-year deal. I was in favor of bringing him back because of how great he was. Signing relievers to multi-year deals can be a little bit risky. The Dodgers had to compromise. They had to get him for 2 additional seasons. There is going to be a bit of risk in this signing, just talking about free agent relievers, especially with the age that they have. However, with the effectiveness that Blake Treinen has been bringing over the past couple of years, especially with what he did last year, and when he's been healthy, he's been great. So last year, put up a 1.93 ERA. A lot of the expected numbers just a little bit higher, but still under 2 or right at around 3-ish for his ERA. You look at his 2021 season, which was his last full season before this in LA, 1.99 ERA. This is a guy who has been effective. He's still generating a lot of swing and miss with a 30% strikeout percentage, and last year with only a 6% walk percentage. Still able to get a ton of hitters out. I love what he provides. He's a high leverage arm out of the bullpen. He's able to go out there and be effective. You can rely on him during the late inning games, during the 9th inning. You don't have to force a Michael Kopech to take that next step. You don't have to you can have a Evan Phillips kind of fill in whenever he's needed, assuming that he's healthy. This is another really good arm to add to this Dodgers bullpen. He was an essential part of this Dodgers team. I don't love the 2 years part, but 2 years is less risky than 3 years. With 2 years for relievers, that might be pushing it a little bit, but that's not enough of a downgrade or enough of a risk to say I want to take Blake Treinen back. I think he is worth it. I think he's worth taking that risk because of the upside that he has in that arm. I don't think the Dodgers win the World Series without Blake Treinen. I think he was a really good part, an essential part to that Dodgers team. I'm glad Blake Treinen is back. He is back on a 2-year, $22 million deal. I think it's going to be a really good thing for this Dodgers bullpen to be able to have that reassurance out of the bullpen. I'm really happy with it. So, Blake Treinen is back. That was not the only offseason addition that the Dodgers added yesterday. So that was person number 38 on their 40-man roster right now. Which, by the way, in the comments section, let me know how you feel about the Blake Treinen signing, both as the player and as the length and type of contract that he got, because that's what I'm interested in. They added player number 39 yesterday, and they added an outfield bat, a left-handed outfield bat. Now, throughout a lot of the coverage here on Dodgers Daily, we haven't been talking a lot about left-handed outfield bats because we've been primarily focused on a lot of the big stuff. The Teoscar Hernandez, is Juan Soto going to be coming in? What about all the young players that could be coming up? Briefly on the show on Friday, we talked about a couple of different names I had mentioned as far as realistic potential signings that the Dodgers could have that were on the free agent market that were left-handed hitters. So there were 3 different names that I had, one of which was Michael Conforto. I think he was the first name that I had. He was the he was the guy that had a lot more upside as the bat, but a little less on the position player side, the fielding side in the outfield. There was Max Kepler, who was more of the league average, but potentially some upside, but could be a little bit more solid in the corners. And then there is Mike Tauchman, was another player that seemed to potentially fit the mold if they were looking for a guy who could play a little bit more center field. The Dodgers decided to sign Michael Conforto to a 1-year, $17 million contract. He is going to be a Dodger. He is a really solid player. So what I want to do is I want to go through some of the numbers that Michael Conforto has had, some of the upside that I see with him, and some of the numbers that I'm actually most excited about for Michael Conforto. So throughout his career, he's been about a 250 hitter, 348, 456, a career WRC plus of 119 throughout his career. Past couple of seasons, he's dealt with a little bit of injuries. He's averaging over the past 3 seasons, not including 2022, which he missed the entire season, about 125 to 130 games. So you're getting a guy who has been a pretty regular hitter, a guy who's getting 475 plate appearances throughout the course of the regular season. Past couple of seasons haven't been the best offensively, but still an above average player, 104, 99, 112. Some of the things that are really exciting about him is he's flashed in his career really high upside early in his career with his age 24 to 26 seasons with the New York Mets, had 147, 119, and 127 WRC plus with anywhere from like a 3.5 to 4 WAR seasons. I'm not expecting that type of player, that type of output from Michael Conforto. However, there's reason to be optimistic about him. So if we're looking at Conforto, and this is some of the fun stuff about him, is a lot of the expected numbers are really good. Not only would you hear about this on some other shows, which I encourage you, go watch some of those other shows. There's a lot of fun content on Dodgers YouTube. His home and road splits were very significantly different. He was a much worse hitter last year. He was a San Francisco Giant, so at Oracle Park, had about an 83 WRC plus. On the road, significantly higher than that. He was a much better hitter on the road. In addition to that, you look at his Baseball Savant page, 2 of the numbers that excite me the most, because these are numbers that correlate more with future success, is his expected slugging percentage and expected WOBA. And I'll explain what those are in just a second. First, I'll talk about expected slugging percentage because I think that's probably the term that most baseball fans would be at least somewhat familiar with. Slugging just takes into account the power component of what you are able to do. Takes into account the doubles, the triples, and the home runs, that aspect. It's part of OPS, one of the important statistics, on base percentage plus the slugging. If you're able to hit more extra base hits, that's better because it's a higher likelihood that you're going to score runs. Home run is better than a single because a home run is a run. A single just means that you got a base hit. Still really good, but not as good as slugging. Last year, Michael Conforto was in the 89th percentile in expected slugging. And he had an expected slugging percentage of 479. During the season last year, Michael Conforto had a 450 slug. So his expected numbers were even better than his actual numbers that he outputted, which means that he could have gotten a little unlucky with a lot of that, which I think could bear out based on the park that he had. In addition to that, he was also in the 85th percentile in all of baseball an expected weighted on base average. So this takes it on a scale of on base percentage and puts certain weights to different categories depending on what is better. Just like what we talked about earlier, a home run is better than a single. A single is a little bit better than a walk, even though it's pretty close to being the exact same because you have the possibility of advancing a runner from second all the way home. It looks at expected run values and then puts it into a component. WOBA is one of the most important statistics in determining a weighted runs created plus. Again, a lot of nerd-related stuff, but that is one of the most important or most correlated statistics to next season's success on the offensive side of the field. And Michael Conforto had a 350 expected weighted on base average, expect ex-WOBA, which was in the 85th percentile. I think that leads, or at least seems to indicate that there is a lot to be excited about what his future is to hold during the upcoming season. And doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but that does mean that there is at least some batted ball data to suggest that things could progress even better during this upcoming season, and Michael Conforto was even a better hitter than his 112 WRC plus was. Now, for him, he can be an everyday player. I'm saying he can be that, not that he will be that. Last year played 130 games, 488 plate appearances. That is close to everyday at-bats, maybe a day off a week, or maybe every other week, 2 days off, something like that. He's a regular player, regular contributor, and throughout his career has been a better hitter against right-handed pitching than left-handed. Last year was a little bit weird because he was better against lefties, WRC plus wise, than right-handed hitters, right-handed pitchers. But throughout his career, he's a career 128 WRC plus against right-handed pitchers, which means he's 28% better than the league average hitter against right-handed pitching for that during that span. So, Conforto, outfielder. The Dodgers have a couple of options, or at least on the table, of what they could do with a Michael Conforto going forward. He can be a platoon at bat. One of the things that a lot of people have been talking about is with Andy Pages. He's much better, at least right now during his career, against left-handed pitching. It might be, and it's something where Dodgers were looking for somebody to potentially platoon with Pages, maybe in the outfield. Either one of the corner outfield spots would be ideal. Pages, his role defensively is better in one of the corner outfield spots. That could be an option for Michael Conforto, and that's probably the most realistic, or at least the most sought-after option for him going forward with this Dodgers team. Is you have him in a little bit more of that Jason Hayward type role last year, except Conforto has a lot more upside than a Jason Hayward, or at least is a lot more well-rounded as a hitter and has more upside as a hitter than what Jason Hayward had. I think Hayward, really solid player, and some of his numbers were really solid, specifically against right-handed pitching. Versus left-handed pitching, he was not able to contribute as much, or not nearly to the same extent. I think with Conforto, I mean, even last year, he was even better against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching. Again, that's just a smaller sample size, 90-some plate appearances, but still, he was able to contribute against both, which means he has the ability to go ahead and be a contributor on the offensive side, either as a little bit more expensive platoon bat option, potentially with an Andy Pages, or he would be, or potentially could be, a regular contributor in the outfield. Again, I'm laying out possibilities. Now, with Conforto, he's not the great defensively out there. Graded out in the 17th percentile in outs above average. Was a little bit better throughout his career. However, the trends are going down for him in the outfield. Very likely a left fielder in the outfield is where I would expect him defensively. Strikeouts and walks percentage, just to talk about those for just a second. In his career, he has had a really good walk percentage. During a lot of the heights of his playing days was about 13%. Last year dipped down to closer to league average at about 8.5%. I think that could potentially be, especially with the offense that surrounded him, and he's going to get some good pitches. He could stay around that. He could also get that closer to 10%. Strikeout percentage has been around the 22 to 24-ish percent. So, you're getting not the best defender in the outfield. You're getting a really solid hitter that has upside to potentially be a really solid contributor. You have underlying metrics which suggest that the batted ball data is a little bit lucky, and you talk about some of the splits that he's had. He could be a platoon option, could be a little bit more of an everyday contributor. I like this signing for the Dodgers. It is a 1-year, $17 million contract. I think that is a good term for the Dodgers to be able to go ahead and give for Michael Conforto. I think it's really solid. It's a lot of upside. It's a little bit more expensive than what I was thinking that the Dodgers might give out, but I think you're getting a better player for this Dodgers team, at least a better hitter. The Dodgers are reinforcing some of the offense on this team with this type of move. He's going to be entering his age 32 season, and he has a chance to make a serious impact on this Dodgers team. What does this mean for other players on the roster? Which I know we had a super chat a little bit earlier, so first I want to answer the question from Mr. John Rod 77. Thank you very much for joining us today. I will get to a lot of your other questions right now, or other questions in a little bit after I lay out some of these. Mr. John Rod, does Sasaki actually have to meet with other teams, or he immediately sign with the Dodgers now, or as he's been posted? And Mike, one of our moderators, is he's expected to meet with other teams. It's not mandatory, but most respectful thing to do. I think he's going to be meeting with a lot of other teams. I would not anticipate him to sign until after, I believe there's a dead period until January 15th. So I think he could sign potentially up until the 15th. And please tell me if I'm wrong, Mike, if you're still in the chat, which go ahead, shout out to Mike and everyone over at Lilo's podcast. They do a really good job over there. I believe he has the ability to sign until the 15th. However, I wouldn't anticipate him until signing after January 15th, in which case that gives him a lot of time to be able to meet and stuff. I don't know exactly all of the details. I hope he comes to the Dodgers. I think he would be great if he came, and if he wants to win World Series championships, I think that would be the best move. But he's got to make the decision as far as what's best for him, what's best for his future. I think it would be Los Angeles, but who knows at this point. Going back to what I was talking to with Michael Conforto. The Dodgers, what does that mean for other players on this roster? Because, yes, there is no bad 1-year signing, meaning that the signing and the impact that it has long-term for the future of your team from a payroll standpoint does not get impacted. But some of these signings can have opportunity cost for certain players. So we're going to talk about the players that are most impacted by this type of move, starting off with James Outman. Now, I know a lot of you have probably given up on James Outman in center field, and perhaps the Dodgers have as well. Last year did not give a reason at the big league level for Dodgers fans to believe in him, believe in his abilities and what he's able to do going forward. The Dodgers have one minor league option left with James Outman for this, and I would anticipate the Dodgers to utilize that minor league option unless there's a incredible breakout during this upcoming season at the beginning of spring training, to where the Dodgers are forced to have him on the roster and he becomes a player that he had, meaning that this is very likely the Dodgers' last chance to get a good look at James Outman. With signing Michael Conforto, if the Dodgers want to go out and get a Teoscar Hernandez, which right now I'm going to be making the assumption that the Dodgers add Teoscar Hernandez or they add another outfielder to the mix. I think Teoscar Hernandez is likely, although we will talk about that, and we will talk about what all these moves mean for Teo and what these moves mean for this roster. If the Dodgers go ahead and keep a Teoscar Hernandez and they have a Michael Conforto, your roster or your ability to have James Outman in this lineup is entirely dependent on injuries. Assuming that they bring back Kike Hernandez, which I think is very likely, there's no room for James Outman. Even right now, just looking at the Dodgers depth chart and where it is, just talking about different players, he is currently projected to be on this roster. However, if they add one additional player, he's not on this roster. In which case, if you add Teoscar Hernandez, there even becomes a question of, is there even room for a Kike Hernandez to be added to this mix? We'll get into that in a little bit, but that's not where I want to talk about this big time. James Outman, again, I want to reemphasize some of the important or the highlights that he brings to this team. In his rookie season, he was a top 5 to 10 center fielder in the game of baseball. 4 war center fielders that play that good of defense do not come around often. Last year, he was nowhere near that type of player, and the swing and miss is a very serious concern with him and has to be cut down if he wants to be consistent enough at the big league level to be able to stick. He knows that. Everybody knows that about him. The Dodgers, during the 2025 season, have one more chance to get a look to see if he is going to be a contributor to this team at all during the upcoming seasons, because if the Dodgers utilize his minor league option during this season, 2026, he won't have any minor league options, which means the Dodgers would have to either have him on the big league roster or they would go live. Please let me know if we are back here. Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My internet just went out for just a second. So I think we are live. If we are still live, just let me know down in the comment section and we'll talk about this. I think we should be good right now. So, cool. So, James Outman, with him going forward, the Dodgers are going to have to figure out what they want to do with him going forward. Appreciate you guys in the comment section. This is his last chance. He is impacted by this deal. I see very little opportunity for him to have any sort of extended runtime outside of injury. So, I would look potentially for some type of trade with him. Now, it's possible that the Dodgers keep him as minor league depth just in case something breaks out. And so because he has minor league options, I don't think they'll rush to trade him. But if a deal pops up that they enjoy or that they like, I think you could potentially see him be part of a deal. He is impacted by the signing, as well as Andy Pages. Now, this brings up some other news that has been brought up around this Dodgers team, and that is some of the positions that the Dodgers are going to have in 2025 that we had questions about might be settled based on some of the comments that have been had throughout the winter meetings. The shortstop for your Los Angeles Dodgers for the 2025 season is Mookie Betts. Now, Mookie Betts switched over to shortstop at the top of the 2024 season when Gavin Lux was not able to take the reins on the shortstop position. And I got to give all the credit to the world to Mookie for what he was able to do, for stepping up in that role, taking leadership for this team, and being able to fill a role that was desperately needed. We also know that for Mookie, it wasn't the best shortstop in the world for him last season, at least his ability to play. During the course of last season, he played about half of the season until he went down with an injury at the shortstop position. I'm going to pull up some of the numbers, particularly his outs above average last year, specifically at the shortstop position of what he was able to contribute. Last season at the shortstop position, outs above average, he had a -4 outs above average and 531 innings. So it was not the greatest defense of shortstop for him right there. Now, he had about 9 days to be able to prepare for the shortstop position, which was not a lot of time. And most people, even professionals at the big league level, were not able to go ahead and be able to find what they were able to do going forward. Most professionals, if they were put in the exact same position, would not have been able to do the exact same thing that Mookie Betts was able to do. I got to give him all the credit in the world for that. He is going to be put in that exact same position, except he's going to have a lot more time to be able to prepare to go ahead and go back up. So I think I'm really excited about what he's going to be able to do going forward, given that he has a full offseason to be able to prepare. Long term for the future of Mookie Betts, I don't know if this is the best thing for him long term. Now, the Dodgers have some long-term contracts, and one of the longest running contracts that the Dodgers are going to have is with Mookie Betts. They are going to have Mookie Betts for the next 8 seasons. He's under contract for the next 8 seasons. And he's not going to get any younger. He's not going to get more athletic. I think his most athletic days are either right now or behind him. Still an incredible athlete, still an incredible player, but he's going to be getting up there in age. And the Dodgers have a long contract, which means that they want to get the most out of Mookie Betts during the years that he has left. My concern about this is transition to shortstop, which I'm talking about my concern right now, which I know is a concern for the Dodgers as well. What does shortstop do to you long term in your ability to be able to contribute, especially offensively? One of the reasons why I've been a really big advocate of Mookie Betts, if he's moving to the infield, to move to second base, is because I believe that is a less taxing position for him to be able to play, so that it would have less of an impact on him on the offensive side. The Dodgers feel, at least at this point, or at least with this current iteration of this Dodgers roster, that they need Mookie Betts to be able to play shortstop. They did not sign a Willy Adames, which, congratulations to Willy Adames, signed a 7-year, $182 million contract to be a San Francisco Giant. They get to go ahead and get a really talented player in a Willy Adames. There was questions that I had about his long-term impact on the roster and what he'd be able to do. The Giants signed him. He got a good payday. Congratulations to him. He's not an option for the Dodgers team. The Dodgers are deciding to have Mookie Betts play the shortstop position. I think he can play better than what he did last year. I don't think it's going to be as bad of shortstop as what we saw last year. I think given the work and given the athleticism and given the professionalism that Mookie Betts has, I think he can be close to a league average defensive shortstop. I think that is some of the upside. I would still anticipate a below league average defensive shortstop, but I think there's upside to be about league average, which, given the offensive ability that Mookie Betts has, or at least the possibility of offensive ability that Mookie Betts has, would be a tremendous shortstop. Couple of questions that I have. Is this going to affect Mookie Betts' bat? A little bit difficult to be able to say that live on air. I would anticipate probably. And I think if you talk to a lot of people, shortstop is extremely taxing on an individual baseball player. I think it's one of the most taxing positions, besides probably the catching position on the diamond. This likely would have maybe a little impact, but possibly a noticeable impact to Mookie Betts with his bat. I'm still expecting him to be a phenomenal hitter, but maybe the numbers dip down just a little bit on the offensive side. Another question that I have is, what does this do throughout a full 162-game season, plus a long postseason, which I think all of us are anticipating or at least hoping for? This is a long time for Mookie Betts to be out there. I hope Mookie Betts long term is not the shortstop for this Dodgers team, meaning over the next several seasons, because I worry about what that does long term towards the end of the 8 years that he has remaining. During this upcoming season, I have no doubt that Mookie Betts is going to be great, but those are where some of my concerns lie. That move means that Gavin Lux, who we had previously written off as a player that's likely on the outs of this Dodgers team, is likely to be the Dodgers starting second baseman for this upcoming season. That is not not something that we were anticipating, given the assumption that Mookie Betts was going to be at second base. But now that Mookie Betts is not going to be at second base, that opens up a spot for Gavin Lux. I now fully anticipate him to be the Dodgers starting second baseman for this upcoming season, potentially getting some days off when Miguel Rojas fills in at shortstop to give Mookie Betts some rest. Then Mookie can move over to second base. There might be a little bit of flip-flop back and forth, potentially a little bit of platooning that gets done there against left-handed pitching. Gavin Lux sits on the bench versus left-handed pitching. Miguel Rojas comes in to play shortstop. Mookie Betts to second base. I could see that coming into play, but he now has a role on this team. And Gavin Lux, it gets talked about a lot, especially after the All-Star break during that second half of the season, was a different player, a vastly different player than what he was during the first half, in which there was very serious question about his ability to contribute on this team. And in fact, he was not contributing. He was not a great player during the first half. Which player of Gavin Lux are we going to get? I think with this move with Mookie to shortstop, the Dodgers are betting on Gavin Lux having the ability to play a solid second base. I think he is solid defensively at the second base position, and they are betting on him to be able to contribute on the offensive side. Those are big shoes for Gavin Lux to fill, but he now has a role on this team. The Dodgers continue to find ways to find roles for him. I'm rooting for him. Casey and I have been big fans of Lux in the past and have cheered him on, but we've been realistic about where the Dodgers are at. Now we're going to be realistic now that the Dodgers are having Mookie at shortstop. Also, David Vassegh tweeted out, I believe it's Brandon Gomes, general manager or person in that Dodgers organization, stated that he anticipates and it's very likely that Max Muncy is going to be the everyday third baseman for this Dodgers team. There's rumors, and there will continue to be rumors about Nolan Arenado and what his trade destination could be in the future. I still anticipate Max Muncy being the everyday third baseman, which means this Dodgers infield is likely set, or at least the just about everyday infield will likely be Max Muncy at third, Mookie Betts at shortstop, Gavin Lux at second base, and Freddie Freeman at first. Some questions defensively on the left side of the infield. I think you're fine with the defense on the right side, but still, there are some questions defensively. Max Muncy made a lot of improvements last season. Will those continue in this upcoming season? I sure hope they do, and I think that they will going forward. That means that, and this is something else that was put out there, Tommy Edman is likely to be a regular out in center field. Tommy Edman can move around to a whole lot of different positions. It sounds like he's going to be regularly playing, meaning almost every day playing out in center field. I think that's good news. That means that Andy Pages is not playing out of position in center field. I think Andy Pages is a bit more of a corner outfield spot. I think this is ideally where the Dodgers would like, and especially with the extension that they gave Tommy Edman, a 5-year extension, which seemed like a couple weeks ago or a week or two ago. He's going to have a very important role on this team. He could still move back to the infield if absolutely needed. If things don't work out with Mookie Betts at the shortstop position, Tommy Edman has the ability to play a lot of shortstop, and you can even move Mookie Betts back to the outfield if you wanted to do that. For at least the start of the season, though, he is anticipated to be the everyday center fielder, which leaves your roster at this point on the position player side. You have your infield that is set. You have catching that is set. You have Tommy Edman in center field, plus a Michael Conforto at the very least being a platoon bat with an Andy Pages. So, what does this mean, and what does the Conforto signing mean for Andy Pages? And believe me, we will get to the Teoscar Hernandez, go talk about him for at least a little bit. I'm waiting a little bit to see if we get any news on Teoscar Hernandez as we are live. We have not gotten anything yet before I go ahead and start that segment. Andy Pages, I think, is a really intriguing player for this team. because I believe in the upside that he has. And I also have talked a lot about this throughout the course of this offseason. And I apologize if I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I think this is important to reemphasize. I still believe it is important for this Dodgers team to give priority at bats, or at least at bats, to position players that are younger as part of this team that they think can help be part of the future of this Dodgers team and really help carry this Dodgers team forward. Andy Pages, who's 23, 24 years old, has the possibility to be a regular contributor for this Dodgers team and is under team control for the next 5 seasons, 6 seasons, however long that is. This Dodgers team, if you look at a lot of the players in this lineup, are starting to get a little bit older. They're starting to get guys that are into their 30s. You look at a lot of their bench bats, and a lot of them are 35, 36 years old. They are not going to be around this team for a long time, which means you need to have guys that can help fill in that role. Which certainly, with the amount of money that this Dodgers team has, you can fill in a lot of those holes with free agency, especially if you sign players to 1-year deals, which means you can patch them in depending on what you want. You can do a lot of that. But it can't be forever if you want to have sustained success, and especially if you want to sign superstar players to long-term deals. I still believe in my heart that there needs to be an influx of young players. It doesn't have to be all of them. It doesn't even have to be a majority of them. It can just be a couple of them. There still has to be young players that you're helping grow up that can help supplement the aging players, the long-term contracts that are part of this Dodgers team, which means Andy Pages plays an important role for this team. Are the Dodgers, with this move with Conforto, stating that they believe the future of Pages is to be a platoon bat exclusively, to go against left-handed hitters? I've stated throughout the course of this offseason that I want Andy to continually get regular at-bats at the big league level, and there's a chance that he could. Signing Michael Conforto does not prevent you from doing that. However, given Michael's history and given the $17 million that the Dodgers are paying him, they could have gotten a Talkman for closer to $5-ish million, or a Kepler closer to 10. They're investing more in a Michael Conforto, which means that they're likely planning on giving him a little bit more at-bats than maybe even Dodgers fans are anticipating. If the Dodgers get and bring back Teoscar Hernandez, I believe those at-bats that Conforto is going to be taking up are going to be cutting into Andy Pages' at-bats during this upcoming season. I don't necessarily love that. I like Teoscar, or I like Andy Pages as a player, and I think there's a lot of upside. I think there's a lot of power upside that he has, and I think the plate discipline that Andy Pages brings can be much more maximized during the upcoming seasons as he gets more comfortable at the big league level, which, believe me, being out there, being a rookie player, especially when you're playing a little bit out of position, Andy Pages is more comfortable in a corner outfield spot, especially when you're playing out of position in center field. I think getting more consistent, regular at-bats at the big league level is necessary to be more comfortable at the big league player. And in fact, we'll go through some of the OPS numbers, OPS plus numbers by age. You'll see over the course of time, especially when they're younger, when they're rookies, when they're about the age that Andy Pages is, it takes a while to get comfortable at the big league level. But what I don't want to see for this Dodgers team is to see all of the players that they're relying on being 36, 37, 38 in a couple of years and not have anybody that's in their prime that can help supplement this Dodgers team. I think there is a fear that that could happen if you don't give priority at bats, or at least give some at bats to some of the younger players that could be of really big importance to this Dodgers team going forward. This is one of the reasons why during the offseason show that I started off the offseason with here on Dodgers Daily, talking about the overall roster, one of the most intriguing and important players that I talked about about this Dodgers team, and the player that I was most fascinated with and most impacted by a lot of the moves that the Dodgers were going to make, was a Dalton Rushing, because of how much I believe in the talent of Dalton Rushing, and because of how much I believe this Dodgers team needs to have an influx of young position players added to this Dodgers team to be able to help supplement this Dodgers lineup. And I believe in the talent that he has. I believe in the talent that Andy Pages has. His role, if the Dodgers bring back Teoscar Hernandez, is going to be diminished for the most part, assuming that Mookie Betts is at shortstop, Gavin Lux second base, Max Muncy third, Tommy Edman is in center field, and then you have maybe a platoon split with a Conforto, Pages, but Pages is against left-handed pitchers as far as that platoon split, which means that is the significantly less plate appearances platoon split. You're not going to see as much pitching on that side as you would be if you are a left-handed hitter, which Conforto is. So, I think those are the two players that are most impacted by the decision with Michael Conforto, which I like what Conforto brings. That brings up the difficult conversation, and the conversation that we are all waiting for, and what we're all waiting for news on, is Teoscar Hernandez. Now, let me say this from the outset. Teoscar Hernandez is a phenomenal player. Teoscar Hernandez is great, and he fits within this Dodgers team. And in fact, I even want Teoscar Hernandez back on this Dodgers team. But I go back to the question that I talked about at the beginning of the show. To what extent are you willing to go to bring back Teoscar Hernandez for the 2025 season? And I'm talking about details. I'm talking about how many years are you willing to go, and what is the dollar amount that you're willing to give for Teoscar Hernandez? Not the contract that you want the Dodgers to get, but what is the limit that you are willing to get? Because the Dodgers did have a limit when it came to the free agency of Juan Soto. Turned out to be about $600 million. Now, I don't know the number of years, and that could just be speculation based on some of the reporting that I've seen. But there is a limit to what the Dodgers are going to be able to spend. So I ask you guys in the comment section, and we can kind of go through some of that in just a little bit, which thank you guys for tuning in. It is a privilege to be able to do this. What is the limit that you're willing to give Teoscar Hernandez? Because there are ramifications that the signing of Juan Soto has for other teams that could directly impact the Dodgers. The New York Mets, if you have not heard, which I don't know how you haven't heard if you're in the baseball world, signed Juan Soto to a 15-year, $765 million contract. Good for Juan Soto. That's great. There was a lot of competition to get him. The New York Yankees offered him a 16-year, $760 million deal. He took the $15,765 from the Mets and moved across town. Now you have a New York Yankees team that has missed out on Juan Soto. They missed out on a Blake Snell, which I believe that they were interested. They seem to be missing out on a lot of players recently. They have a team that they feel like that was just in the World Series, and they still feel like they need to maximize the years, especially the prime years of Aaron Judge, who is perhaps the best hitter in the game of baseball. WRC plus wise is ridiculous what he's able to do on the field. They may feel like they need to have to supplement some of the production that a Juan Soto was able to give him. You also talk about the Boston Red Sox, who again missed out on another key free agent for this Dodgers team. Or missed out on another key free agent for their team in Juan Soto. They were heavily pursuing him, and they desperately want to find somebody to be able to help that team, whether they're actually going to sign players to deals or whether they're just going to be interested in a lot of players becomes a question. But it sounds like both of them and potentially others, two players that felt like they could not get the deal done for Juan Soto, have to look their fans in the eye and have to look for some type of move to be able to make. And right now, the best outfielder on the market is probably a Teoscar Hernandez. There is Anthony Santander, really solid player. Teoscar Hernandez, with what he showed last season, is really, really good. And there's a good chance, and in fact, there's a lot of rumblings, there's a lot of rumors right now that Teoscar is getting a lot of interest from teams like the Yankees, from teams like the Red Sox, which means the contract pursuit, or the going into negotiation with the contract, is going to become very competitive. Teoscar loved being a Dodger, and in fact, about a week or so ago, it sounded like the Dodgers and Teoscar Hernandez were close to a deal, and that was reported or talked about by David Vassay, who's about as close to this Dodgers team and their players as any person on this earth. But there's a gap that remains very clearly because the Dodgers have not made a deal yet with Teo, unless some news just broke right now, which I don't believe we have had any news break, which just let me know down in the comment section down below. Teoscar Hernandez is 32 years old. He's coming off a really good season, a bounce-back season from what he was able to do. He loves it in Los Angeles, and I think would really enjoy and would love it to be a Dodger. But I think there's a limit to what the Dodgers are going to be able to do. And if you're just talking strictly from a baseball analytic, baseball numbers, baseball contract-wise, I think there is limitations to how comfortable you are giving out type of contracts, whereas other teams like the Yankees and like the Red Sox are very likely to be more desperate than a Dodgers team who, as much as the Dodgers would love to have Teoscar Hernandez back, I don't think is as much of a need to add to their team as it is to a Yankees or Red Sox team, which means that the Dodgers could be pushed on negotiations for both years and money-wise. So I'm going to go to the comment section. I'm going to go to you guys and talk about what you guys think as far as some deals for Teoscar Hernandez. Again, I want to ask you guys, what is the max number of years and dollar amount that you guys have? John Cozy says not more than 3 years. Alex, I think Teo's going to get 4 to 5 year contracts since he's the best outfield bat available on the market. Let's see. Just Minks, 3-7 for $75 million is his limit. Alex says he might even get 6 if a team gets desperate. Chill Tyne All-Star says give Teo 4 years, $95 million. Dave S says I'd give Teo $375, but I think he may be getting 4 to 5 year deal elsewhere. Let's see. John Cozy, 3 for $75. Roy Estrada, 3 years with a 4th year club option. 4th year option seems reasonable. Cole, 4 years, $180 million with a 5th year mutual option. So I'm seeing a lot of, and then let's see, there's a 4 years, $90 million with additional 20 possible in incentives to 110 max. Deuce Ryder, 851 said that. So what I'm seeing a lot is a lot of 3-year deals and with potentially a 4th option. Chris Navarro says 4 years, $100 million. That's $25 million per year. So I've been debating this a little bit in my mind as well. Now, with Teoscar Hernandez, what I'm going to go through is I'm going to go through some of the numbers that he has, and then I'm going to talk about a little bit of research that I have, and then I'm going to be talking about where some of my limits would be, which I think Dodgers Dogs are incredibly smart, and I think you guys are hitting it right around the nail that I have as far as the years and as far as some of the max that I would give because of some of the research that I have a little bit in a bit. So what I want to go through is I want to go through Teoscar Hernandez, some of his numbers, some of his upside, because I think a lot of times us as fans get emotionally invested into players, which we should be. The game of baseball is fun. The game of baseball is amazing, and we should be invested in a lot of these players. And with Teoscar Hernandez and what he meant to this Dodgers team, what he meant to this Dodgers clubhouse cannot be quantified. What we're going to be talking about is not those aspects, which I think those are important, and those should be considered very heavily in any sort of decision as far as whether to bring back Teoscar Hernandez or not, or to go ahead and give him an extra year or a little bit extra money. What we're going to be talking about is strictly baseball type stuff. and then we're going to be talking about potential projections going forward of what he could potentially bring. So, what I want to do is I want to talk about the past couple of seasons that Teo has had. Earlier in his career, when he was with both Houston, then he went over to Toronto, was around a league average-ish type of player, still trying to face his way to his big league career. 26 years old, 103 WRC+. Once he hit to his age 27, or the 2020 season, which again, shortened season, really showed some sign of being able to advance in his career. 142 WRC+. Teoscar Hernandez is a great example of being patient with somebody and allowing them to be able to find their way on the offensive side to be able to contribute. Good lesson for the Dodgers to learn about some of their young players as well. Doesn't mean that they will become Teoscar Hernandez, but they could be if the Dodgers are patient with them. What I want to talk about is 2021 to 2024, though. 2021-22, when he was with Toronto, really great seasons. Back-to-back 130 WRC+ seasons, 132 and 21, 130 and 22. He put up 4 and 3 WAR during those seasons. Took a little bit of a backseat in 23 with Seattle. Tough park to play at, but still WRC+ takes into account park factors. 106 WRC+, about a 2 WAR player right there. 2024 put up a 134, 135-ish, you can round it up, WRC+, 3.5 WAR. He had 33 bombs. He's averaged anywhere between 25 to 30 home runs during the past couple of seasons. That is the upside of Teoscar Hernandez. He's not a great defender in the outfield. He was a little bit better out in right field last season, but he's still not a great defender, and especially as he gets older, I would anticipate him to be a better defender. Strikes out a little bit too much. Last year, about 28.8%. Walked at about 8%. Still a phenomenal player, and even some of the expected numbers last year were really, really solid for Teoscar Hernandez. I talked a lot about, with Michael Conforto's, his expected WOBA and expected slugging percentage. Well, those are still really solid for Teoscar. Last year, expected slugging, 91st percentile. Very similar to what Michael Conforto brought. His expected slugging was 486. His expected weighted on-base average, expected WOBA, was 346. That was in the 83rd percentile. Very similar to what a Conforto was able to bring to this team. He is still able to generate really good contact, and through his age 31 season was really good for this team. So, what I wanted to do, and what I was curious about, one is what are some of the projections, and what does past history say about players as they get up with age? So, projections, just want to talk through some projections because I talked a little bit about Steamer, which is one of the projections that Fangraphs has. It's not as good as a projection like Zips is, but during the next season, during his age 32 season, Teoscar Hernandez is projected to hit 257, 317, 446 with a 113 WRC+, about 2.5 WAR during this upcoming season. Now, I think that's probably a little bit on the low side for what Teoscar can bring, especially if you surround him with the players that he was surrounded by in LA. I would anticipate that to be a little bit better. But I think there is and can be a realistic expectation that somewhere over the course of the next couple of seasons, there is going to be some type of regression with Teoscar Hernandez, just like there is regression with every single player. The question is, how long does it take to be able to receive some of that regression? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to look a little bit as far as some of the history of the game of baseball, particularly some of the recent history in the game. And so what I did is actually utilized a resource, actually paid for a little bit of this resource because I wanted to see exactly what it was all about. Cool resource that it has over on Baseball Reference. It is StatHead. StatHead is a resource that you can pay for, get a little bit more advanced, do a little bit more research. Does not have all of the statistics that I love on that website. There's a lot of limitations or things that I don't love about it, but still a really good resource to be able to use, especially for research like this. So what I wanted to do is I specifically wanted to look at players as they age and what they're able to do on the offensive side. So what I did is I looked at two different things, and what you're going to see, and I'll pull this up in just a minute, is there's going to be two different sets of rows and columns that are going to be on here. It's going to be looking specifically at a player's age, as well as if they had a 120 OPS plus, which OPS plus is the exact same as WRC plus, or practically the same. There's just minor details. Exact same thing. 100 is league average. Anything above is good. Anything below is below league average. So what I wanted to look at players since 2000. So we're getting the year 2000 all the way to 2024. I wanted to look, one, how many of these players had 250 plate appearances? And of those people, all of those players that had 250 plate appearances by age, how many of them had a 120 or more OPS plus? Again, number of players that had a 120 OPS plus by age. What percentage of those players were had? I also wanted to look for players that maybe had a little bit of swing and miss in their ability, because Teoscar Hernandez isn't just an average. He also has a lot of swing and miss in his ability. So I wanted to look at those players as well to see if there is potential concern. Now, a couple of things about this analysis. It does not take into account if a player has been good during previous years. So that is a limitation to this, and that is something that's a lot more difficult to be able to find based on a lot of these things. However, I think this can give at least a little bit of an indication that there is potentially some worrying trends, especially that gets up there with age, both about the number of players and the percentage of players. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right here. This is what I was able to find. Again, credit to StatHead. I'm going to explain what I have right now first, but I'm going to explain with this bottom section because this is a little bit easier to understand than this. This one is a little bit more detailed. So here we have is in each one of these columns, we have the age of an individual player. We also have the number of players that had a 120 or more OPS plus, as well as the number of players total that fit within that age, and then the percent that goes along right there. Now, there's a little bit of misleading stuff that you can find in here, and a little bit of commonalities that I was able to find. But as you can see, there are not a lot of players that come up and have 250 plate appearances at age 20, 21, even 22, and get up to the big league level. So there's 21 players through the years 2000 to 2024 in their age 20 season. There were 21 players that had 250 plate appearances. 8 of them had a 120 OPS plus. That's 38% of them had an OPS plus of 120 or more. Again, less than what Teoscar Hernandez was able to produce last year, which was about 130. But I wanted to set 120 as an example right there. You can see throughout some of the early 20s, throughout this part, they start to get more and more players that get part of that age range, and the percentage seems to stick at around 20-ish%. Certainly, there are some players that are up there, but it sticks around 20-ish% until you get into the prime of certain players' careers, which really take place from like this 27 to 30, maybe even you can include a 31 as part of that. So you start to go from about the 20s-ish%, which don't just conclude part of the percent. Look at both the percent and the actual total number of players, because that's going to provide a little bit more of an outlook of there. So you're going from percent around 20, and then the numbers from about less than 100, till you're getting a good sample size, about 160 to 170 players throughout this total age range being a 120 OPS plus player, 25%. As a player gets older, and what's really concerning is, one, the percentage, but also the numbers. Teoscar Hernandez is entering his age 32 season, And what we see throughout the course is from the years 2000 to the year 2024. And this isn't just number of players. This is number of seasons, which means that, for example, goes back to 2000, which means this often includes a player like a Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was phenomenal. He could be counted in age 36, his age 37, his age 38, whatever season that it has. So it could be multiple different players that are part of this, which means you're getting a very exclusive class of players. 32, age 32, which is what Teoscar is going to be entering in, it's about 20-ish% that have a 120 OPS plus in their career, very similar to some of this earlier years. 33, that percentage jumps up, but the actual number of players is still around the same, which means if you stick around, there might be still a little bit good of a chance, 23%, that you're going to be at that level, dips down. 61 players, age 34, had an OPS plus of 120 and 250 plate appearances since the year 2000 in Major League history. Same thing with 35. As soon as you pass into age 36, which would be the 5th year on a Teoscar Hernandez contract, you're talking about 26 players that have the 120 OPS plus, which with Teoscar Hernandez being on this team would mean that he would have to his main source of production is going to be on the offensive side. There is not a lot of players that, one, have 250 plate appearances since 2000 at the age of 36. Dips down once you get to 37. But even with that, we're only around 16% of those are actually able to produce 120 OPS plus. That can be a very concerning trend, and you can see that through some of the other outputs down here. Again, I get that this Excel sheet is a little bit small, but hopefully you're able to zoom in to be able to see some of these. Same things with this. Now, with this, and this is a limitation with StatHead, you're not able to go by strikeout percentage. You have to go a little bit creative. Have at-bats per, or strikeouts per at-bat, or at-bats divided by strikeouts. And so what I set that at was 4 at-bats for strikeout. What that doesn't include is like walks. So if a player walks a lot, that doesn't count towards an at-bat. Very much a limitation to this. I set it at 4, which means if a player had 0 walks, they would be about equivalent to about a 25% strikeout percentage, which is certainly not what Teoscar's is. This is a little bit higher than that. Looking at a lot of these same percentages, these same trends, and you can see a lot of these trends continue. And you look at some of the number of players right there, there's really not a whole lot of players. Could be because the game has changed a little bit and there's a lot more strikeouts in the game now, so a lot less of a sample size, but still a little bit of a concerning trend. So why do I bring this up? I bring this up and I bring up a lot of these numbers not to say do not sign Teoscar Hernandez. In fact, I want the Dodgers to sign Teoscar Hernandez, and I'm hoping that at some point while we are live that they actually do sign Teo. What I am saying this, and the reason why I'm talking about this, is because the Dodgers and Teo are at a gap. And if I had to guess, my guess is it would be concerning the years and the length of the deal. If you look at recent big league history since the year 2000, which is not a small sample size, the number of players that are able to be productive, which Teoscar Hernandez, with his trend on the defensive side, has to be productive with his bat, which 120 OPS plus, 20% above league average, would be very productive on the offensive side of the plate. But if he's not able to provide value defensively, this has to be there. Otherwise, the later years of the contract will not be productive at all. And there's very few people that have had that level of success, that level of offensive production in the years forward. It takes a special type of player. A lot of the players that are part of the age 36 to 40s-ish class are Hall of Fame type players. Can Teoscar Hernandez be able to buck some of those trends? Or do you want to play it a little bit safe? There's a little bit more history with the ages of 32 to 35 that you can have with a lot of success. which means I think the Dodgers would probably be willing to go to about a 4-year deal. I think they would be more comfortable and most comfortable with a 3-year deal. But I think they could extend it to a 4th year. The question is, are the Yankees or are the Red Sox or another team that is desperate, that missed out on Juan Soto, that may have missed out on a Blake Snell, or missed out on a lot of other players, are they desperate enough to go and offer Teoscar Hernandez a 5th or 6th year? And as you, as a fan, do you believe that Teoscar Hernandez is this integral to this Dodgers team? Yes, he is an integral part of this Dodgers team. No doubt about it. Is he this integral, meaning this time commitment, meaning understanding that he is going to be on this Dodgers team likely during years of diminished production and likely during years, especially if he's not able to contribute defensively and if his offense is not able to buck some of the trends that we see here? Are you willing to take that chance right now with Teoscar Hernandez? Because it's very likely going to be coming to that role with Teo. Which means the Dodgers have a very important question to answer. And I'm going to talk about strictly baseball terms, and then we'll bring in the other aspect with Teo, because there's another aspect that is not measured analytically. If it was run strictly based off of the future projections of Teoscar Hernandez, if it was just based off of that, and just the baseball analytical side, and assuming that it will take at least a 4-year deal, probably a 5-year deal if other teams are really pushing hard for Teo. I honestly don't know if analytically wise, baseball wise, that would be the smartest move for the Dodgers to make. However, and this is the however part, and this is, I know there's a lot of people that are commenting, probably yelling at me for my Teoscar Hernandez hate. There's a lot that Teoscar Hernandez brought to this team last year that was not measured analytically. There's a lot that he meant to this clubhouse, and I think there is a need for a right-handed power bat as part of this Dodgers team. Whether you think that can be an Andy Pages be able to help supplement that role, or whether you don't think that that is necessarily going to be the case, I think Teoscar Hernandez fills a role. I think he is a massive part of this clubhouse and a main reason why the Dodgers won the World Series in 2024. He was an integral part of that. And that has to be taken account for this Dodgers team. Question is, what is the Dodgers' limit? And how uncomfortable are they willing to go as far as years-wise? Money-wise, I think the Dodgers will offer more annual money per year than other teams because I don't think they really care about the actual money dedication. They're way over the luxury tax at this point, or at least they will be way over the luxury tax, the furthest luxury tax. They're not really concerned about that, I would not anticipate, because they gave a 1-year, $17 million contract to a potential platoon bat. Or is he a potential platoon bat? Or is he the exact type of player that the Dodgers targeted last offseason with a Teoscar Hernandez, betting on the upside, betting on a 1-year deal to be able to help contribute to this club? Just in case the Dodgers' limit for Teoscar Hernandez is overreached. Again, I'm hoping that this is not happening. Again, I'm putting my hands up to say that I'm not rooting for Teoscar Hernandez to go to another team. I understand. You have to understand the baseball side of things and to understand that there are limits. And I don't think it's bring back Teoscar Hernandez at whatever cost. Because if they do not bring back Teoscar Hernandez, and we're going down this road, a road that I do not want to go down, that presents opportunities. One, they would play Michael Conforto every single day in left field. They would very likely give Andy Pages just about every single day at bats in the outfield and right field. Perhaps they supplement it with another lesser option out on free agency on the offensive side. Maybe a Randall Grichuk to be able to fill in the shoes. Maybe somebody like that, or they go out and make a trade. Again, I'm just throwing that name out there because it's a right-handed outfield bat that is a free agent. They could supplement the roster a little bit like that. That would present more opportunities to potentially to play some of these other younger players that would open up an avenue potentially for a Dalton Rushing to be able to come into the fold, because if you add a Teoscar Hernandez to this club with Tommy Edman in center field and with Andy Pages being part of this, do you want your younger guys to be part of platoon bats? That becomes a very real question. Again, this is not to say do not re-sign a Teoscar Hernandez. There are very serious questions that the signing of Michael Conforto has. It does not eliminate them from bringing back Teoscar Hernandez, but combine this with the Juan Soto signing and combine this with some of the other news that has been brought forward, particularly with Gavin Lux having a role on this team, with Mookie Betts moving over to shortstop, with Tommy Edman playing center field a lot. The role for the young players becomes a very serious question, especially with what is going to be happening to Teoscar Hernandez. It is a very curious time for this Dodgers team, and very likely could be decided sometime during the course of this winter meetings as far as bringing back Teoscar Hernandez, what that's going to be able to do. I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. Again, what I did right now is trying to be realistic and trying to lay out a case that perhaps you might know about, or maybe didn't really want to hear that. And certainly I want to bring back Teoscar Hernandez, but I think it's important and necessary for me to be able to bring it out and outline a case in the event that the Dodgers do not bring back Teo. I know things are not going to be happy if that is the case, and Teoscar is beloved in Los Angeles, and I hope that they bring him back. But there's a very real world where they might not bring him back, and I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. So, going into the comment section right now, first off, I got to give shout out to Chris Navarro. He's absolutely amazing. Great stuff, Austin. Thanks for doing the research and detailed discussion. I appreciate you tuning in as well for this. So we'll go into some of the comments. We'll go into some of the recent ones. I'll try to scroll up to some of the older ones as well. And we'll talk right now. Sammy Boy Smith, love the Christmas sweater. Austin, doing a great job too. Appreciate this. This is actually a Great Lakes Loons Christmas sweater on sale right now. Loons.milbstore.com. 99837 ball. Go ahead and get you one of these for the Christmas season. Get it for your, give it for whoever you need this upcoming season. They're having a sale right now. Hepatitis, see you later. Austin, how would you like Seiya Suzuki or J. Happ as replacements for Teoscar Hernandez if another team gives him too much years? I think Suzuki could become a much more realistic possibility in a trade package. I would be much more open to something like that if Teo signs elsewhere. Suzuki is signed, I think there's 2 more years left on his contract. I haven't done a ton of research as far as him. I know he's been a solid player, owed about $19 million during this upcoming season. So that would fit in somewhere around the price range that they would be looking for, and likely would not cost the Dodgers a whole lot of money going forward for this Dodgers team. And years-wise, just 2 years left on that deal might fit into the timeline better. That would be something that I would look for. I'd have to look into Happ. I'm assuming you're talking about maybe Ian Happ for the Cubs, unless there's some J. Happ is from some other team. I don't think Happ is likely available for trade at this point. It sounds like Bailey and Suzuki, the Cubs are looking to deal a little bit more, or at least that's the assumption. I would assume that the Dodgers would be more inclined to go after a Suzuki as opposed to a Bellinger at this point, especially when they brought in Conforto, and because they don't necessarily need a center field with Tommy Edman being out there. Dave S., I trust Friedman and company to do the right thing. Deuce Ryder, rushing is the most valuable as backup catcher first, then outfield. Let's see how long Barnes can stay off the IL. Teo would come back. He will always hit better in this lineup. Yes, I believe that he would hit better in this lineup, and I think that's part of the pitch that the Dodgers are making to Teoscar Hernandez in his camp. I think the people that are around here and the clubhouse make Teoscar Hernandez an overall better hitter and better player. But at some point, Teoscar Hernandez is going to have to look himself in the mirror and look at his family, look at his entire situation, and make whatever decision is best for himself. Whether that is for LA, which there's going to be some sort of limit that they have for this contract, or maybe there's not. Who knows? I'm not in part of the back rooms. Or for him going forward for his family, he's going to have to make that decision for himself. As far as rushing is concerned, Casey and I had a little bit back and forth on this on the show on Friday, which a lot of the conversation is fun, and we try to play devil's advocate with each other. If the plan is Dalton rushing in left field, which one, I think Dalton Rushing needs to continue to play catcher because I think he has a role and there will be opportunities to play catcher on this Dodgers team, even if it's just backup catching roles. And I think where Dalton Rushing has his most value is behind the plate at the catching position. I do not want to have him give that up full time. But one area of disagreement that I had on the show with Casey on Friday has to do with Dalton Rushing and his ability to play outfield right now. I think Casey and I both agree that Rushing needs every single day reps in the outfield. Where those everyday reps come from, though, I think is where we disagree right now. Even I think he agreed with kind of the math of where it is. What I haven't liked about the Dodgers in implementing some of their position player prospects in recent years has to be that a lot of times the Dodgers, because they have a lot of great veteran players and because they like a lot of the positional versatility and they trust a lot of the athleticism of some of these players, is they often put these players outside or out of their natural position when they come up to the big league level, and they try to make that stick. Which, if you are a young prospect coming up to the big league level, one, it's already incredibly difficult to hit at the big league level for anybody, but especially as you are seeing more consistent and more nasty stuff. You're seeing it's the most difficult thing to do in all of sports, and so you have to focus on that. But if you have to add on top of that, learning a new position on the fly, learning everything that there is to do at that, and you combine both of those, I think that's where we've seen some of the stalling of some of the Dodgers prospects, as opposed to letting them get a little bit comfortable at the big league level, plus providing them consistent, regular at-bats. I think that's why there was a little bit less production from a player like a Michael Busch during his time in Los Angeles, whereas when he went over to Chicago and was playing regular first base, which I think is probably more of a natural position to him or something that he can get comfortable with, he was able to put up a 119, 120 WRC plus last season and is now an anchor as part as that Chicago Cubs lineup. Shout out to him. I'm happy that he's able to contribute and be a part of that. With Rushing, let's assume that the Dodgers, and there are certain Dodgers fans that want him to start off the season at the big league level in left field. While I think it is important, and while I know that he needs reps in the outfield, and while I want him to get reps in the outfield, I don't necessarily know if that is the greatest thing for his production, that if that's the greatest thing for him going forward to start the season, trying to continue to learn left field, which he spent about a month and a half, 2 months, plus this offseason to be able to learn, which certainly the offseason helps. But I think it's very hard to replicate those in-game actions, and especially because he's still young and because roles on this roster are very limited, I would rather him start the season down in AAA, not because his offensive ability isn't there. I think there's a good chance that his offensive ability and his talent-wise is big league ready, but I think I would, if I were him, trying to learn from some of the past mistakes of some of the Dodgers position player prospects, would prefer if he got a little bit more comfortable out in the outfield down at Oklahoma City, even if that's just another month and a half, 2 months for him to be ready, so that when he gets to the big league level, he's still not, while there's still a lot of things to be able to learn, he's not trying to learn everything on the fly at the big league level. There still needs to be at-bats, priority at-bats given to Dalton Rushing this season, and I think this organization is thrilled and beyond excited that he's part of this organization. If he wants to have, or if the Dodgers want him to have any role in the future of this club, I think they need to give him major league at-bats, assuming that he's continuing to be as productive at the minor league level as he has been in years past, which, knowing him, there's basically nobody within the system that I believe in more than Dalton Rushing. So I'm super excited about that, and I think that's another reason why it's important to be able to talk about a lot of these different discussions with Teo, because Teo's future and Dalton Rushing's future could very well intersect and be part of each other, especially when you throw in Andy Pages. There becomes a lot of questions as far as that. So really good question. Christian Rivaro, which would you rather sign, Teo or Santander? At this point, probably Teo. He's part of this Dodgers club. I think the Dodgers could use right-handed back. I think Santander's switch-handed is a switch hitter, which is valuable, but I like the upside and the power that Teo brings, and we've already seen how he fits into this Dodgers clubhouse, this Dodgers lineup. If they don't bring him back, Santander becomes a little bit more of a possibility for this Dodgers team. I would have to do a little bit more digging into the research of Santander to be able to see if I truly love going after a player like that, or if I would prefer more of the in-house or short-term options to potentially go after other free agents in the future. Still a really solid player, though, Santander, and what he's able to do. Let's see. Continuing on. Two-run DMC says, Laureano for center field, signed Corbin Burns as an ace, use excess pitchers to get more depth. That could be an option. I don't see them going after Laureano for center field. I think Tommy Edman's going to be the center field based on what we've heard. If they don't bring back Teo, though, could be an option, but there's a lot of swing and miss in his at-bat, and is not at the same level that he had been when he was with Oakland. With Corbin Burns, I honestly don't see them going after either Fried or Corbin Burns anymore after they got Blake Snell. I kind of thought it was one of those guys, and I think they're hoping that they get a rookie Sasaki. They likely will bring back Kershaw at some point, which you can have comments as far as where he's at in his career. He's a phenomenal part of this organization and will likely see starts. I just don't know if they want to give out another long-term contract to a pitcher, although certainly there's a lot of risk with the pitching staff that they have right now. Let's see. Dave S. Teo is known and loved by fans and teammates. If this were the only choice, yeah, he's absolutely loved by the team. Hepatitis, see you later. Thank you very much for joining us. Astros listening to offers on Kyle Tucker. He would be a dream scenario to replace Teo. Yes, Kyle Tucker is phenomenal. And I think it's next season, and I could be wrong about this, could be 2 seasons, or I think it's next season he's going to be a free agent, which could be one of the reasons why the Astros are looking to potentially trade a Kyle Tucker. They could be potentially more on the downturn of their run that they've had, which they've had a really good run, and I think a lot of Dodgers fans would not be upset if they were running onto the downturn of their career. And there has been some rumblings that him and Framber Valdez, who are both in their last year of arbitration, could be potentially on the trade block. I do not see the Dodgers making a trade with Houston, although if you were to trade for any type of player, Kyle Tucker's a really good player, and he's a better hitter than a Teoscar Hernandez is. He's absolutely phenomenal. That's nothing against Teoscar Hernandez. That's just to say Kyle Tucker is phenomenal. And if they don't bring back a Teoscar Hernandez, you enter into the 2025-2026 offseason, and Kyle Tucker is one of those names where the Dodgers could be very seriously interested in, especially if they go with shorter term, 1-year type deals. Could be an option. I just don't see them going after a trade for that. Let's see. Hepatitis See You Later says, Austin saying that needs to be said. There's a lot of risk with giving a guy like Teoscar 5 to 6 years. Certainly there is with that. Serious Dramas talking about Teo. Clutch power bat. Absolutely is clutch power bat right now. So let's go ahead and see if there's anything else right here. Let's see. got to give a shout out to my grandfather, Kerry Brubaker's in the chat. Thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate you. Hope everything's going well, and hope your trip was really good. Al Minerva says Buxton, Robert Jr. We have the prospects. Could be something that the Dodgers go ahead and pursue. Buxton or Robert. I've never been the biggest fan. Luis Robert and his offensive profile. And I think a lot of the projections, there would be a lot of risk in that type of move. Similar with Buxton, a lot of injury risks for both of them. But the Dodgers do have the prospects to be able to make that work if they wanted to go ahead and do that. So I apologize. Didn't get to a lot of the comments that you had. I had a lot to talk about tonight. And could certainly be a lot going on with this Dodgers team. I'm hoping that the Dodgers make some sort of news, or at least we hear something from this Dodgers team going forward as far as what they are going to be able to do or what they're going to do, especially with the decision with Teoscar Hernandez. That could be coming within the next couple of days. A couple of other things that are important coming up. Rule 5 draft. I believe this is the last show that we're going to have before the Rule 5 draft takes place. It takes place on Wednesday. I think it's 2 Eastern. Let me check really quick what time the Rule 5 draft is. Because this is a really important day for a lot of these players within this system. We talk about this Dodgers team, which, give me just a second. Yeah, it's 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific on Wednesday, December 11th. That's 2 days away. This is a really important day for a lot of Dodgers prospects across there. We're talking a lot about star talent player that is part of this Dodgers team. And this is important because this Dodgers team is going after and pushing to win World Series. But as you've seen with a lot of these player interviews, which there's going to be more, I think there's going to be one probably released tomorrow. And I think tomorrow night, pitching coach for Great Lakes, Dave Anderson, is going to be joining the show. That's going to be premiering tomorrow. I'm super excited about that. One of my favorite people that is part of the Dodgers organization. Absolutely love DA. With this, the Rule 5 draft presents an opportunity for guys who don't seem to have opportunities at the big league level. A guy like a Ryan Ward, who we talk about the outfield. We talk about what the Dodgers could do in the outfield. One name that we didn't mention in the show today is Ryan Ward. And he has shown a lot of ability at the minor league level and has fought over the past couple of seasons, even dating back before his great 2021 season in Great Lakes, to be a guy who's looking for an opportunity at the big league level. And oftentimes with this Dodgers organization, those opportunities are very limited for a lot of these younger guys, a lot of these prospects, a lot of these either pitchers or position players. And while there is not a lot of players selected in the Rule 5 draft because of the way it is structured, meaning the player has to get added to a team's 26-man roster, there is potentially hope for some of these guys who look at the future in this Dodgers organization and might not see a role in the future, because these guys are fighting for their dream, they're fighting for their journey, and they're fighting for their big league career, not just for themselves, but for their family as well. So, Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific, is the Rule 5 draft. And there could be some players that get selected from this Dodgers team, this Dodgers organization. We talked about it on the Rule 5 draft show we had close to a month ago now. Some names to potentially keep an eye out for, just off the top of my head, which there's a lot more than this. There's a guy like a Ryan Ward, outfielder, who, especially if you look for what he did for Team USA Baseball and what he did reestablishing himself at the Oklahoma City this past season, has a lot of power potential and could fit right into a big league lineup. I think of a player like Gator, Austin Gauthier, versatile position player prospect. You play all over the diamond. That is incredibly valuable, especially if you throw him as your 26th man on your roster. But his plate discipline is elite, especially with his ability to draw walks. And if he adds a little bit more power, which it sounds like he's gaining a little bit more muscle during this offseason, he could be of incredible value to another team. I think of some other players like on the pitching side, like Carlos Duran, or like a Jose Rodriguez, one of my sleeper picks, one of the guys I wanted the Dodgers to potentially protect, or some of the guys at the upper level, like Michael Hobbs, who joined the show, or there's a lot of players that are going to be listed on there. In fact, I'll go ahead and read off some of these guys because I want these guys to have their due. So a guy like a Logan Boyer or Honiel Choi who joined the show, go ahead and check out that interview. Carlos Duran, Alec Gamboa, Ben Harris, Michael Hobbs, Antonio Knowles, Jack Little, Orlando Ortiz Mayer, which if you watch any of these player interviews, which watch them all, that is the one to watch. That one is fascinating. Kelvin Ramirez, Jose Rodriguez, Jermaine Rosario, Christian Suarez, Ryan Sublett, Yainer Fernandez, GLP, Griffin Lockwood Powell, Cody Hosey is another name to keep an eye out for. Damon Keith, DK, that's one who's got a lot of tools. Jose Ramos also has great tools. Vogie, Jake Vogel, and then the guys that I mentioned previously. They could have their lives forever changed on Wednesday, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see what would happen. It could be something where not a lot of people get selected, which there's a past history for that, but at least they'll have answers going forward. That's another important thing to keep in mind during this upcoming weeks. There's also winter meetings continuing throughout the course of the rest of the week, which means I would anticipate more moves to come during the next couple of weeks. For not just this Dodgers team, but for teams across the game of baseball. It is a fun time to be a baseball fan. When we seem like we're a long ways away, we are actually less than 75 days. I think it is 73 days, something like that, until the first spring training game. And so while it seems like things are a little far off, the hot stove is on fire, and baseball is going to be back soon. And the Dodgers need to set them up to try to win a World Series again and be the first team since the Yankees team is back in the late 90s or in 2000 to go back-to-back. The Dodgers have the ability to do that. The Dodgers have the ability to build a dynasty. Next couple of days, Dodgers can make some important moves. Thank you again for tuning in. Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My name has been Austin Brubaker and continues to be Austin Brubaker. We will have more stuff coming up for you guys tomorrow morning. I believe there's going to be a player interview, as well as tomorrow evening there's going to be a premiere. I believe pitching coach Great Lakes Dave Anderson is going to be premiering tomorrow. If that's not the case, something else will be happening here on Dodgers Daily Wednesday night at I believe 5:30. Pacific, I believe, is when Casey and I are going to go live. Something around then. We'll be going live for you guys and talking more about these moves. We'll get some of his thoughts about everything that has gone on, from Mookie Betts playing shortstop to them bringing in Conforto to Blake Treinen to all of these different things. Dodgers baseball news is just flying around right now, and it's been an absolute privilege to be able to talk to you guys about that. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in. Go Dodgers.